Welcome to Career Essentials. My name is Chira, and at Career Essentials, we give it to you real. We keep it real. It's all about honest career guidance and beyond. Today, we're going to explore what's happening in a workplace environment. If you're feeling down, if you feel like you don't have a purpose, if you're not feeling happy at the job you're doing, we're going to be exploring the idea of well-being in a work environment or well-being in employment. So joining me is Danny today. Hey Danny.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good. That's good. You must have seen Danny before. We did a video on banking. If you haven't seen that, check that out. So he's gonna enlighten us on the well-being in a workplace. So Danny, tell me, what are the problems that people commonly face in the workplace where they feel stuck, or have you come across something like that? What do you think are some of the problems here?
Well, traditionally, in the workplace, when the workplace was created originally, people were kind of felt like they should be happy just to go to work and receive a salary. And you do see that in a lot of workplaces today. But as time's progressed, we realise now how many opportunities there are actually available. And you could be working in one place today and you could be headhunted via LinkedIn, or you could go to a career site and find the perfect job for you, and you could be working in that new position within a matter of weeks, sometimes even days. And employers are starting to realise this today, and especially in banking, where stress levels are really, really high, and people are coming to work, and you've got two types of people really. They talk about them as millennials, but I'm just going to group them into two different groups. You've got the traditionalists, the kind of people who will go and they'll work in a place and they'll spend all of their lives with that one employer, and at the end of it they'll get a relatively good retirement package. They'll get to go away and do whatever they want for the rest of their lives, for however many lives are remaining, and they'll be able to have a good standard of living. And they're happy to stick with this one employer no matter how they treat them, no matter how many of their friends are made redundant, no matter how many of their friends are fired or go off with stress. No matter what happens, they're willing to stick with this one employer. And then you've got the other type of employee, the modernist, the type of person who has absolutely no ties to the company whatsoever, and they can come and go as and when they please. Kind of like bounty hunters. You get to see this a lot from contractors today, where they can be working for one employer one week and then another the next. So there isn't that loyalty factor anymore with employees and their companies. So employers now, they're obliged to create workplace well-being, or at least enhance the well-being of their employees. And how are they doing that? They're doing it through various ways, such as well-being schemes, bike to work, gym memberships, health packages, all these different things that they put in place in order to make the well-being of their employees improved. But they're not really getting down to the individual level. They're offering all these things, bike for work. How many people actually bike to work? I know I do. I know I have done in the past. I'm not doing it at the minute, it's quite cold. But have they even asked? Have any employees even gone out there and said to their employees, would you like a bike for work scheme? Would you use it? I really don't think that they have. Because you're going to get a few people using this, but the majority of people are still going to come in their cars or use the train or the bus, even if they do have that benefit in place.
So what you're saying is, you've got two groups of people. You've got your sort of classical, old school, traditional thinking where they are loyal to the organization, and you've got these other group of employees who may not necessarily be job hoppers, but they're not necessarily as loyal. They may be contractors, they look for the short-term benefits, and then they're happy to bounce on to another company.
Yep.
And what you're saying is, there are certain schemes introduced by the company, and you're saying that they're not as good as they should be. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that they're not as good as they should be. I'm saying the schemes are as good as they can be, but I just don't think that they're holistic enough for today's modern workplace environment. The people who are traditionalists, as I mentioned before, the people who are loyal to companies, they are sorry for searching for a better choice of words, but they're a dying breed and they're not going to be around for much longer. So companies now, they haven't made that shift towards the modernist enough to say, right, okay, these people who are going to stick with us through thick and thin, they're actually going to be leaving in a few years' time. Once they've retired completely, especially the leaders of companies, they're going to be gone. And we're going to be now stuck with these people who can get up at the drop of a hat and just leave. how are we keeping them? How are we helping them to feel like the workplace that we have, the culture that we have that we've set up, is for them?
Okay.
A culture that they'd want to be a part of.
Yes. Yes.
Not enough is being done for these people.
Right.
We're throwing well-being initiatives at them, but we're not even saying to them, are these the kind of things that you want? The main aim of well-being is for people to be able to come to work, feel good about their work, feel like they actually have meaning in their work, and that they can be themselves too. Because there's nothing worse than having a person come to work who is one person at home, and then they get to work and they're a completely different person. Because if they're having to be inauthentic at work, then they're not going to be happy.
Okay. So at Career Essentials, we got a spectrum of individuals, from employment, employees, self-employment, investors, and so on. So let's say someone has a business, someone's a lead in an organization, a manager, and she's got a team of group people working for a certain vision or mission. What advice would you give for that particular person or that particular company to have holistic, more sort of specific schemes for them to be in employment with that organization? What would you recommend, or what advice have you got for us today?
Well, I definitely wouldn't just, I know I've grouped everybody into two different groups here, so I've talked about traditionalists and modernists. And I definitely wouldn't just focus on the modernists, because we know that the traditionalists are going to be leaving soon. I feel like everybody should be given the same opportunities at work. But as we're introducing new wellbeing schemes, rather than just saying to ourselves, right, the wellbeing industry is growing at the minute. Wellbeing is statistically shown to have an impact on the well-being of employees and their happiness at work and that kind of thing. Let's introduce a new well-being scheme so that people are happy. Cut that out straight away. Start by going to people in the organisation and saying to them, what would make you want to stay at this company? What kind of scheme, even if you were to give them some choices and say, would Bike for Work is something that would be you at our company, and would make you want to be more part of this culture? Is remote working something that would make you want to stay at this company? Greater time off, dynamic working, flexible working, you can come in early, you can stay later. Mm-hmm. Are these the kind of things that you want? And you can find out, based upon your own sector, based upon your own function within the organisation, what kind of things are valued the most. If you've got a customer facing function, so if you're in the banking industry, I work in a branch, very few of the people who work for me are going to be able to work from home. We're not going to be able to send customers home to their address. They would have to come into work, but what can we do for them while they're at work to help them to come to work and be their authentic selves, for them to bring their whole self to work? Okay. Talk about what's important to them. And not only are we talking about the branch network, but let's just say you've got a branch in one region or one area, so in the city centre for instance. The people who work at that branch are going to have completely different needs to somebody who works in a smaller branch in a remote location somewhere, out in the sticks. So asking them exactly what, it's going to cost a lot more money, it is. I'm not saying that it's not. But employers, if they do want to improve the livelihood of their employees while they're at work, and they do want to retain talent for the future, they have to make these changes. There's no other way to it. This is the trend. This is where we have to go with it.
Okay. So what you suggest is going out to the members of staff in your organization, ask them individually what they like in terms of what they prefer, what is more meaningful for them as individuals, and then your human resources department would come up with certain schemes that are tailored for that particular branch, for that particular organization, more specifically for those particular individuals, as an incentive to contribute to their well-being as an employee.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Let's just say as an example then, because I know that you prefer examples from me. So you've got a young, dynamic workforce working in the city centre, okay? Mm-hmm. Development hungry, they really want to progress, they're very ambitious, okay? In this particular place, we can ask them, what is it that's important to them? and they tell us that they want to progress, they're ambitious, that they want to be able to progress within the company, they want training, they want development. So what we can include at that branch is a centre of excellence where there's progressive steps in the training and the development so that they can aspire to be more. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we've got the basic needs at the bottom, and at the top we've got transcendence, which is where you're so fulfilled in all of your other levels that you're willing to go out there and help other people in order to bring up their hierarchy of needs. If we think that the majority of the people who are working at these branches, that safety, security, food, all of that stuff is already covered. So we're having to go in at a higher level for them and help them and say to them, what is it exactly that you want? And they're wanting development, things like that. They're getting quite close to the top. They want enlightenment. You know, they want to be able to progress above what they were initially capable of. Take that as one example. And then we go to a smaller branch where you've got a lot of older staff. They're looking now towards retirement. All that they're thinking about now, all the kids have grown up, you know, they don't want to progress. They don't want to train and develop and things like that. Why are we treating them exactly the same as these young, hungry people in these larger branches? What can we do for these people in the smaller branches? Well, maybe what we can do is we can offer them greater retirement benefits, pension. We can offer them greater ability to do medical checks. We can give them more dynamic working so that if they're feeling like work's getting a little bit too much for them in their older age, they're able to take part-time hours. And we make it easy for them to do that, not put barriers in the way and say, oh, well, we don't have anybody else to cover here. Maybe we can use that branch as a training ground for these younger staff who don't get those opportunities in the city centre branches, and they can come out and they can cover those counters. This is just one example, and I'm only using banking because this is where I work, but there's a million things that we can do. All we have to do is start being more creative about it and not putting up barriers and blocking people.
Okay. Right, so another factor is to be creative, more really target the demographics, the age demographics and their motives and the situation in their life, and then assess and take action accordingly.
Yeah, but not to marginalise or pigeonhole people again,
Yeah.
because just because somebody's older doesn't mean that they've never had this hunger for ambition and for development.
Okay.
It might just mean that they've never felt that that was something that was available to them. So
Okay.
if we go to them and say to them, what is important to you?
Right.
Well, we might find that they want to move out of this small branch where nothing's happening. They might want to go to somewhere where people are hungry.
Okay.
We're not asking people on an individual level, and that's one thing that's come out in recent times is individual expression. You see it everywhere now. You see it on YouTube, you see it with blogging, you see it in writing, you see it in the street with fashion. People want to be individual, they want to stand out, they want to be themselves. If you go on LinkedIn these days, everybody is a somebody, everybody's talking about what they're doing differently in the world. We're not drilling and mining into those individuals. We're not saying to them, what is it you want? And it's a huge, huge project, but the faster we get on board with this, the faster well-being at work is going to improve.
Okay. Right. One thing that does spring to my mind is an organization would have its own particular agenda with their products, services, and they have their own targets they have to keep up. It's a competitive world out there amongst competitors, suppliers, subcontractors, and the industry itself in general. You've got to be fast-paced, you've got to be effective, you've got to be efficient. It's just where it is. So how does the human resources department and your employees find that right place between providing specific schemes and getting the best performance out of them? How do you find that sort of balance or the little sweet spot?
When in management theory, there's something called the golden thread, and the idea is that organisational strategy, organisational goals, movement, direction should align with that of HR, because the whole point of HR and human resources management from a strategic standpoint is to guide the organisational direction and not hinder it. So where the organisation's goals might be to increase growth, and improve service for customers, and maybe even improve the well-being of colleagues. Human resources strategic management looks at developing people, improving learning, improving training, and this kind of thing. We need to find a fit between these two. They're both heading towards the same goals, but at the same time, they're not crisscrossing over one another and they're not causing one another problems. Human resources is where the wellbeing initiatives should begin. This is where, because human resources is where they have the time to look into wellbeing initiatives, wellbeing development programs, and they can say to the organisation, right, we want to get to here, we want to improve growth. Now, without us wanting to hinder growth, because one great way to improve growth is to improve performance, is to make people work harder and faster and smarter. But if you do that without considering the fact that they are human beings, they're not machines. You know, they need that care and attention. Yeah. They need to be treated as individuals. If we don't do that, we're going to have burnout. Burnout's a major issue. It has been a major issue in the past, and it's going to get increasingly worse as time goes on. People being off for stress, people being off for depression, people taking time off because their children are sick. Why are their children sick? Maybe because they're coming home and they're in moods that are causing negative moods that are causing the children to become unwell. Maybe the children aren't having fun at school. They come home and their parents are either not able to be at home because they're working too hard, or they're coming home and they're not able to bring their whole selves back home. What kind of problems is that causing for the future generations, for children who are going to grow up and be the leaders of the world in the future? This problem needs to be corrected now, and it's got to be done at both levels, organisational level and the human resources strategic management level.
Okay, wow. Thanks for that, Danny. We really covered a lot there with regards to well-being in a work environment, in a workplace, about looking after your employees as an employer, as a leader. So I hope this video helps you out to come up with some strategies to consider your workforce, whether it's your certain demographics, and coming up with schemes so that it appeals. Work is an appealing thing, something that they can enjoy, something that they're comfortable with, at the same time striving to get the best performance from their skills, expertise and experience. So if you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment